Welcome back to the channel, folks, where we dive into the wild, wonderful world of men transforming into women in all kinds of fascinating ways. If that's your vibe, don't forget to smash that subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up. Now let's jump right into today's story.
The lucky Clover thrummed with life on a Friday night, glasses clinking, laughter ricocheting off stained brick, and the thrum of old rock pouring from battered speakers overhead. Behind the bar, Rye Evans worked his magic. Not the kind with spells or potions, just a flick of his wrist, a flash of his grin, and the smooth confidence of a man who knew every regular, every trick, and every weakness. Rye was in his element. He poured pints with a practiced hand, slid whiskey sours across the lacquered wood, and winked at a table of giggling college girls who'd started a not-so-subtle debate over which of them could take him home. He gave them his signature smirk, the one that always promised just enough but never quite delivered. "Ladies, there's enough of me to go around," he teased, voice low and lazy, "but you'll have to form a line." Mark Bennett nursed a Guinness at the bar, a slab of a man with gentle eyes and a day's honest sweat on his brow. He chuckled, shaking his head. "One of these days, Rye, someone's gonna knock you off that pedestal." Rye flashed him a wolfish grin. "And what would I do for entertainment then?" "Maybe try humility," Mark replied, eyes crinkling. Now, that's a four-letter word in here," Rye shot back. He slid another beer down the bar backhand, perfectly aimed as always. "Besides, you've seen the competition. If I stop, the whole place goes celibate." Mark snorted into his glass. "With you around, that'll never happen." The door creaked open, letting in a chill of night air and someone new, or so it seemed. The regulars parted almost instinctively for Serena Voss, who swept in with a swirl of violet skirts and a cascade of dark hair. She was ageless, or at least as ageless as a woman who sold fortunes in a shop that smelled of incense and secrets could be. Her eyes, too bright for the dim pub, landed on Rye with a knowing glint. "Rye Evans," she purred, sliding onto a bar stool, "I hear you're still the king of the Clover." "That's right," Rye said, drumming his fingers on the counter. "And what can I get for the queen of mumbo-jumbo? Gin with a dash of snake oil." Serena's lips curled. "Careful, bartender, mockery has a way of circling back." Rye winked, pouring her a glass of red wine. "I'll take my chances, unless your tarot cards say otherwise." She leaned in, her perfume heady and strange. "The cards say your luck's about to change. Maybe you should let me read your palm, see what kind of trouble you're really in." Mark, ever the peacemaker, chuckled. "Come on, Rye, let her read you, could be fun." "Fun is my middle name," Rye said, but he held his hand out, palm up, with a theatrical sigh. "All right, Madame Serena, show me my future. But if you see me dying alone, keep it to yourself, I've got a reputation." Serena's fingers were cool, her touch lingering just a little too long. She traced the lines on his palm, brow furrowing in mock seriousness. You're cocky, impulsive, a little self-obsessed. But there's a gap here, see?" She pointed to the crease at the base of his thumb. "A hole in your heart. You fill it with noise, with women, with whiskey, but you've never let anyone see the real you." Rice snorted, half amused, half defensive. "All that from a hand? You missed your calling, Serena. Should have been a shrink." She let go, eyes twinkling. "Sometimes, to understand love, you must walk a different path. Be careful what you wish for, Rye Evans." The bar erupted in laughter as another round was ordered. Rye grinned, but something in Serena's gaze lingered, half warning, half promise. He shrugged it off, raising his glass in a toast to the crowd. "To luck, love, and living with no regrets." The regulars cheered, glasses aloft. Serena sipped her wine, watching him with a secret smile. Mark leaned over, voice low. "She got under your skin, huh?" Rye shrugged, trying to ignore the chill running down his spine. "It'll take more than parlor tricks and pretty eyes to rattle me." But as the night wore on and the laughter grew louder, Rye caught Serena's gaze once more. She held up her empty glass, mouthing two words. "Good luck." He grinned, cocky as ever, blissfully unaware that tomorrow everything would change. Rye's alarm blared, vibrating against the empty whiskey glass on his nightstand. He slapped at it, grunting, eyes glued shut. His mouth tasted like cheap bourbon and the end of a dirty joke, par for the course after a Friday night at the Clover. He rolled over, scratching his jaw, a morning ritual. Except this morning his stubble felt thin, too smooth, weird. Rai cracked one eye open, squinting into the half-light. His reflection in the old mirror above the dresser looked a little off. Maybe the hangover was worse than he thought. He leaned closer, tongue poking at his cheek. His jaw wasn't quite as sharp. The bags under his eyes were gone, replaced by a softness he didn't recognize. Even his lips looked fuller. He ran his fingers through his hair, thicker, somehow, and definitely less coarse. "Must be the new conditioner," he muttered, forcing a cocky grin. "Damn, Evans, you're starting to look like a model." He dropped the towel around his waist and padded to the bathroom. As he brushed his teeth, he tried to whistle at himself in the mirror. The sound came out higher, almost musical. He coughed, tried again, but the note was just as light. "Great, now I sound like I'm auditioning for a boy band," he grumbled, spitting into the sink. Clothes felt strange too. His favorite jeans sagged at the hips. The usual tightness around his thighs was gone. He shrugged it off, blaming bad laundry or maybe a few missed meals. No way in hell he was getting sick. He was Rai Evans, after all. The walk to the Lucky Clover was business as usual, minus the weird sensation of his shirt brushing against skin that felt less hairy. He gave a nod to Mrs. Franklin walking her poodle, flashed a wink at the mail carrier, and rolled his shoulders. Still had it. Inside the bar, the regulars shouted his name. Mark was already at the counter, newspaper in hand. "Morning sunshine," Mark called, grinning. "Rough night." "Never rough for me, buddy," Rai shot back, slapping the bar and sliding behind it. "Just had to chase some dreams." Mark eyed him, brow raised. "You look different. Did you get a facial or something?" Rai snorted. "You offering, Bennett? I don't let just anyone touch this mug." He flashed a smile, but Mark kept looking, head cocked. "Seriously, man, something else changed. You look fresher. Did you sleep?" Rai shrugged, pouring himself a black coffee. "Guess I finally got some beauty rest. God knows I deserve it." The morning wore on, but Rai couldn't shake the weirdness. He caught his reflection in the beer taps, softer angles, eyes looking bigger, somehow more inviting. He tried to ignore it, focusing on the usual banter. A group of girls came in, ordering mimosas and giggling over some dating app disaster. Rai leaned in, working his charm. But when he tried his usual line, "So, ladies, who's up for a little magic behind the bar?" they just smiled politely, then returned to their phones. One of them winked at Mark instead. Rai blinked, thrown off his game for the first time in ever. "Guess I lost my touch," he muttered, pouring another round. By the time lunch rolled around, Rai's nerves were fraying. His skin tingled whenever someone brushed past him. The usual bar smells, yeast, sweat, perfume, felt sharper, almost overwhelming. He was jumpy, laughing too loud at Mark's jokes, snapping at the dishwasher for dropping a glass. "Dude, chill," Mark said, frowning. "You're acting weird." "Just tired," Rai lied. "Long week." As dusk fell, the bar filled up. Rai felt more exposed than ever, like everyone was watching him, sizing him up. He ducked into the bathroom, splashing water on his face, heart pounding. The door creaked. Serena's reflection appeared beside his in the mirror, all smoky eyes and sly smile. "Rough day, Rai," she purred, her voice soft as velvet. He glared, trying to look tough, but his eyes slid away from her gaze. "You following me now? Looking for that tip you forgot last night?" She laughed, low and throaty. "I told you, sometimes the mirror tells a different story. You starting to see anything new?" Rai scowled, jaw tight. "You put something in my drink, didn't you?" Her smile widened. "Maybe you just needed a new perspective. Don't worry, the fun is just beginning." She glided out, leaving her scent, incense and lavender in the air. Rai stared at himself, throat dry. For a second, he thought he saw someone else in the mirror, someone softer, prettier, almost feminine. He blinked, the image was gone. Rai splashed his face again, gripping the sink. "Get a grip, Evans," he whispered. "It's just a bad hangover, that's all." But as the night wore on, and the bar's neon lights flickered, Rai couldn't escape the feeling that Serena's words were more than just mischief. Something was changing, and he had no idea how deep the rabbit hole went. The next morning, Rai woke up tangled in sheets, his legs bare and hair mussed. Something heavy pressed on his chest, not the usual hangover, but a weight, a sense of strangeness that made his skin prickle. He yawned, stretched, and froze. His hair, longer, softer, fell over his forehead, brushing his cheek. He ran his fingers through it, expecting to find the usual short mess. Instead, his hand disappeared into a silky mane that curled gently at his collar. "What the?" Rye scrambled for the mirror, tripping over his own jeans on the floor. He stared wide-eyed, jaw slack. His face was unmistakably his, but not. His features had shifted overnight, cheekbones higher, lashes darker, lips plush and pink. His jaw was softer, his nose a little cuter, his eyes almost too big for his face, like a model in a cologne ad, if the ad was for something a little naughtier. He poked his cheek, half hoping it would pop like a soap bubble. No such luck. His torso looked narrower, his waist curving in just a bit. Even his arms were slimmer, the muscle replaced with a gentle, feminine line. When he tried to put on his favorite t-shirt, it hung loose around his chest, but clung oddly to his hips. "Jesus, I look like a damn Instagram filter," he muttered, voice cracking, halfway between his usual baritone and something higher, lighter. He coughed, trying to clear his throat, but the sound only made it worse. "Great, puberty round 2. He fumbled into his jeans, struggling to button them. His hips felt tight in all the wrong places, and he had to cinch his belt 3 notches tighter just to keep his pants up. When he reached for his aftershave, the scent made his nose wrinkle, too harsh, too sharp. He settled for a splash of water and a prayer. At the Lucky Clover, Rye tried to play it cool. He swaggered in, only to realize his usual stride felt off, his center of gravity had shifted, his walk turning into an awkward, hip-swaying stumble. Mark was already at the bar, sipping coffee. He looked up, then did a double take. "Rye, man, you're what you do to your hair." Rye shrugged, ruffling the soft waves. "Just, trying something new. Gotta keep up with the times, right?" He forced a grin, but his voice wobbled, cracking embarrassingly high on right. Mark grinned not unkindly. "You look good, softer. The girls are gonna love it." Rye tried to flirt with a group of women at the corner table, but his usual lines fell flat. His voice cracked again, and when he tried to lean in, he nearly knocked over a stool. The women giggled, but not in the way he liked, more like they were watching a puppy trip over its own feet. One of the regulars, Gina, sidled up to the bar. "Rye, you look different, lose a bet." He flashed a grin, playing it up. "Maybe I'm just evolving. Next week I'll have wings and a tail." She laughed, eyes lingering a little too long on his new curves. "Wouldn't complain, you might just pull it off." Rye's cheeks flushed, a tingle running down his spine. He turned away, fidgeting with the taps, but even his hands looked slimmer, more delicate. Halfway through his shift, disaster struck. He reached for a keg, tried to lift it with his usual gusto, and nearly toppled backward as his arms trembled. Mark rushed over, steadying him. "Careful, hero, you're not as beefy as you used to be." Rye shot him a glare, but it lacked its usual bite. "Maybe you're just getting stronger, Bennett," he shot back, but the words sounded weak, almost petulant. A wardrobe malfunction was next. His belt slipped, jeans sagging dangerously low on his hips. He yanked them up, cheeks burning, as Gina and the other regulars burst into laughter. "Nice boxers, Rye," someone called. "You planning on moonlighting at the strip club?" Rye flipped them off, but couldn't help noticing that even his middle finger looked daintier. As the bar settled into its evening hum, Serena appeared at the door, eyes glittering with mischief. She leaned over the counter, her perfume curling around Rye like invisible silk. "Having trouble keeping it together?" she asked, voice syrupy sweet. Rye glared, voice dropping in a desperate attempt to sound manly. "If you did something to me, you better undo it. Now." Serena tisked, tapping her long, painted nails on the bar. "Didn't your mother ever teach you manners, or is that the next lesson?" He scowled, lowering his voice, only for it to crack again. "This isn't funny." "Oh, it's hilarious," Serena purred. "You always wanted to see the world from a different angle, Rye. Consider this a front row seat." He clenched his jaw, but the fight was leaving him. "How do I fix it?" She leaned in, her lips brushing his ear. "Maybe you don't need fixing, maybe you need to let go." He shivered, heat pooling in his belly. For a moment he forgot where he was, forgot who he was. Serena straightened, smiling. "See you soon, Riley." He blinked. "What?" She winked, disappearing into the crowd. Rye stared after her, the name echoing in his head. "Riley, It fit somehow soft, strange, new. He slumped onto a stool, burying his face in his hands. His swagger was gone, his confidence unraveling. Every joke, every flirt, every move he made felt foreign, like he was wearing someone else's skin. By closing time, he was exhausted, nerves shot, his voice almost unrecognizable. The regulars called him Rye Girl and Pretty Boy, teasing but not cruel. He laughed along, but it felt hollow. That night, staring in the mirror, Rye whispered the name Serena had given him. Riley. He didn't know if he hated it or loved it. All he knew was there was no turning back. Riley Evans woke up with the distinct sensation that her body was no longer her own. The weight on her chest was unmistakable this time, the gentle swell beneath the borrowed t-shirt impossible to ignore. Her hips brushed the edge of the nightstand when she swung her legs out of bed, her waist curved in, a line she'd never felt before. When she caught sight of herself in the mirror, she nearly dropped her phone. The girl staring back had Rye's eyes, but everything else was new, delicate, striking, feminine. Soft peach skin, lips with a natural, kissable pout, hair that tumbled in glossy waves to her shoulders. She was beautiful. She was Riley. Okay, Riley muttered, hands trembling as she traced her new curves. This is real. This is actually happening. She tried on Rye's old shirts, but nothing fit right. The sleeves dangled past her wrists, and the fabric hung awkwardly over her chest. She tried squeezing into her jeans, no chance. After 15 minutes of cursing and wrestling with zippers, she surrendered and dug out an old pair of sweatpants and a hoodie. Not exactly glamorous, but at least she could breathe. At the Lucky Clover, the room fell silent when Riley walked in. The regulars blinked, then looked away, whispering in little knots at their tables. Mark stood behind the bar, polishing a glass, confusion etched across his face. Hey, Riley said, her voice soft, musical, completely unrecognizable. Mark did a double take. Riley, that you? What happened to Rye? She forced a smile, nerves jangling. Rye's out sick. I'm his cousin, filling in for a few days. Mark's eyes narrowed, but he went along. You look a lot like him. He paused, then added, but's better. Riley's cheeks flushed. Thanks, I think. The night started awkwardly. Riley fumbled with bottles and glasses, hands smaller and clumsier than she remembered. When she leaned over to grab a pint glass, she caught a few men at the bar eyeing her new shape. She pulled the hoodie tighter, cursing under her breath. Gina, the waitress, sidled over. Don't let them get to you. First week's always the worst. Riley managed a nervous laugh. I'll try not to spill anything or cry in the cooler. Gina grinned, looping her arm through Riley's. That's the spirit. You want to survive here, you gotta give as good as you get. She lowered her voice, eyes glinting. And if any of them get handsy, let me know. I'll break their fingers. Riley grinned, the tension melting a little. For the first time, she felt a spark of camaraderie that Rye had never known. The women at the bar included her in their late-night gossip, swapping dating horror stories and makeup hacks. She laughed along, feeling both out of place and strangely at home. Meanwhile, the men offered plenty of awkward flirtation. One regular, a burly guy named Tom, tried his luck with a cheesy pickup line. Hey, gorgeous, you got a name or can I call you mine? Riley rolled her eyes, smiling despite herself. You can call me working, and if you keep talking, I'll call you a cab. The bar erupted in laughter, Tom included. Riley felt a rush of pride, different from the old days, more playful, less predatory. As the night wore on, Mark leaned in, elbows on the bar. You handled yourself pretty well tonight. You sure you've never bartended before? Riley shrugged, hiding a smile. I had a good teacher. Rye taught me everything I know. Mark chuckled. He always did have a way with people, but you're different. Kinder, maybe, or just real. Riley looked away, heart thumping. Sometimes it takes a change to figure out who you really are. They locked eyes, and for a moment the world shrank to just the two of them. Mark's gaze was gentle, searching. Riley felt a flutter in her stomach, a warmth she'd never known as Rye. They spent the rest of the night in easy conversation, jokes, stories, confessions. Mark talked about his work, his dreams, his loneliness. Riley listened, really listened, understanding him in a way Rye never could have. When the last customer left, Mark and Riley lingered behind the bar, shoulders touching. Mark glanced at her, a crooked smile on his lips. You know, you're the first person I've been able to talk to like this in a long time. Riley smiled back, her voice low and intimate. Me too. The air was thick with something unspoken, desire, maybe, or just the thrill of connection. Riley found herself wanting to lean in to see if Mark's lips tasted as good as they looked, but instead, she stood, nerves humming, and began wiping down the bar. As she worked, she caught her reflection in the mirror, soft, feminine, glowing from the inside out. For the first time, she didn't feel like a stranger in her own skin. Maybe, she thought, this wasn't a curse after all. Riley's phone buzzed with a message from Gina. Girl, I signed you up for Clover singles. You're welcome. Riley snorted coffee out her nose, earning a weird look from a pair of hungover regulars at the bar. Great, she muttered, dabbing at her lips. This is how I die. Bad dates and digital humiliation. She survived her first week as Riley, barely. Her body felt utterly foreign, every curve a gentle, persistent reminder, every brush of fabric a secret thrill. The changes had settled in like they owned the place. Her breasts were full and sensitive, her hips swung when she walked, and her skin glowed with an effortless radiance that made mirrors both friend and foe. But it was her feelings that shocked her most. She laughed more, sometimes laughed until she cried. She cried, too, at TV commercials, at Gina's stories, at a customer's tale of heartbreak. She felt everything more sharply, more deeply than she ever had as Rye. It was terrifying. It was exhilarating. It was also absolutely, mortifyingly awkward. Her first foray into the world of women's fashion was a disaster. She spent an hour in the thrift shop, trying on skirts and blouses that pinched, squeezed, or hung off her like a sack. It took Gina's intervention. No, honey, this is how you button a blouse. And don't even think about the kitten heels yet, to finally leave with an outfit that made her look and feel, well, hot. Her first date was with a guy named Tony who had more product in his hair than she'd ever seen in her life. He kept calling her babe and bragging about his CrossFit gains. The highlight of the evening was when she accidentally spilled red wine in his lap, and he sulked the rest of the night. The second date was just as bad, some tech bro who spent the entire dinner explaining blockchain. Riley found herself wishing for one of Rye's pickup lines just to break the tension. Afterward, Mark was waiting at the bar, nursing a beer. He grinned as she slid onto the stool beside him. Rough night. You have no idea, Riley groaned, dropping her head to the sticky countertop. I'd rather do inventory naked in January than go on another date. Mark laughed, the sound warm and easy. Maybe you're just too good for them. Riley looked up, surprised by the sincerity in his eyes. For a moment, she wondered what it would be like to date him, to let herself fall just a little. Gina dragged Riley out for ladies' night, cocktails, dancing, and a crash course in the secret language of women. They talked about everything: love, heartbreak, men, sex. Riley listened, mouth agape, as Gina and the others swapped stories about terrible exes and perfect kisses. Best part about being a woman, Gina whispered with a wink. You get to choose who deserves you, and you never have to fake it, not if you know what you want. Riley flushed, the heat creeping down her neck. She wondered, not for the first time, what she really wanted now. The memory of Mark's hands, rough, warm, steady, lingered longer than she cared to admit. Serena appeared late one night, sliding onto a bar stool as Riley wiped down the counter. Her eyes sparkled with mischief. You're learning quickly, Serena purred, but you're still holding back. Riley glared, half playful, half accusing. You could have warned me about the wardrobe malfunctions. Serena laughed, low and knowing. That was half the fun. But the real lesson isn't about clothes or dates. It's about you, Riley. You can't love someone else until you love who you are. Riley bit her lip, glancing at her reflection in the glass. And if I never figure it out? Serena reached across, her touch gentle. You're closer than you think. Let yourself feel. Let yourself want. That night after closing, Mark lingered. The bar was quiet, just the two of them and the soft hum of the jukebox. I think I'm finally getting the hang of this, Riley said, voice soft, a little vulnerable. But I still feel like I'm faking it, like everyone can see right through me. Mark shook his head, eyes kind. You're more real than anyone I know. I like you, Riley. I like talking to you. I like being around you. She felt a rush of heat, the kind that made her want to close the distance between them. She wanted to be seen, to be touched, to be wanted, not for the act, not for the chase, but for her. Mark reached over, brushing a strand of hair behind her ear. His fingers lingered. You know, you're beautiful when you're honest. Riley's breath caught. For the first time, she didn't run from the feeling. Laughing, she threw a towel at him. Your trouble, Mark Bennett. He caught it easily, grinning. You have no idea. The moment hung between them, electric with all the things they weren't saying. Yet. The lucky Clover was closing. The last glass was polished, the jukebox silent, the neon signs flickering in the misty window. Riley stood behind the bar, hands trembling as she wiped down the counter for the third time, nerves a raw wire humming in her chest. Tonight it had to happen, the truth, the spell, everything. Mark lingered, as always, nursing a beer long after everyone had gone. He looked at Riley with a warmth that made her insides flutter, a look reserved for someone he trusted. Someone he wanted. He'd been quiet tonight, watching her more than usual, as if trying to solve a puzzle with no picture on the box. Riley took a breath. Mark, can we talk? He nodded, sliding onto a stool. Of course, what's up? She hesitated, words caught in her throat. For days, she'd rehearsed this confession, how to explain the impossible, how to tell him about Rye, about Serena, about the woman she'd become. But now, with Mark's eyes on her, everything felt heavier, realer. Mark, I haven't been honest with you. There's something you need to know about me. He smiled, soft and steady. You can tell me anything, Riley, you know that. She closed her eyes. A week ago, I was someone else, someone you knew, someone you called friend. Mark's brow furrowed, confusion flickering across his face. Riley pressed on, voice trembling. I was Rye Evans. Silence, the kind that stretches, brittle and sharp. Mark gave a nervous laugh. That's a hell of a joke. Rye, come on, Riley. It's not a joke. Riley's voice was barely a whisper. Serena did something to me. Magic, I guess. She changed me, made me this. Mark stared, mouth open, his world upended. You're serious? Riley nodded. I didn't want to lie. I didn't know how to tell you. I didn't even know how to be me. He scrubbed a hand over his face, trying to process. So, all this time, Rye's been gone and you. I'm still me, Mark, just different. She swallowed, fighting tears. But I'm happier now. I feel things I never felt before. And she hesitated, searching his face for any sign of hope. I care about you, more than I ever thought possible. Mark was silent, his gaze distant, wrestling with a storm of memories and feelings. For a moment, Riley was sure she'd lost him. But then he looked at her, really looked at her. Saw the old Rye in her eyes, the same spark, the same humor, but also something new. Softness, vulnerability, a kind of beauty that went deeper than skin. He reached for her hand, fingers calloused and warm. You're still you, he said, voice rough. And I think I've been falling for you, Riley, even before I knew. Riley's tears spilled over, the relief crashing through her. She squeezed his hand, laughing through her sobs. You're impossible, Mark Bennett. He grinned, takes one to know one. The spell in the room pulsed, electric, as if the world was holding its breath. And then, as if on cue, Serena slipped through the door, leaning against the frame with her signature smirk. The air shimmered around her, a subtle magic swirling in the dim light. You did it, she said, her voice a velvet purr. You finally told the truth. Riley wiped her eyes, heart pounding. What now? Serena's smile was gentle for once. Now the choice is yours, the spell's broken, you can go back if you want, or you can stay just as you are. Mark squeezed Riley's hand, hope and desire burning in his gaze. What do you want, Riley? Riley looked at him, at Serena, at her own reflection in the bar's dark window. She thought of everything she'd gained: friendship, laughter, vulnerability, love. She thought of all she'd lost and realized for the first time that she didn't miss it. She smiled, radiant and sure. I want to stay. I want to be Riley. I want this. I want you. Mark pulled her into his arms, laughter and tears tangling together. Serena slipped out as quietly as she'd come, her work done, another soul set free. For the first time, Riley felt whole, desired, loved. And as the lights went out, Mark kissed her, soft, slow, and full of promise. The world spun, and Riley let herself fall, knowing she'd landed exactly where she belonged. When Riley woke, sunlight spilled across her sheets like a blessing. She stretched, luxuriating in the newness of her body, a body that for the first time felt entirely her own. She ran her hands through her hair, soft and wild, and smiled at her reflection. This was her, Riley Evans, Queen of the Clover. Downstairs, the bar was already buzzing. Gina barked orders at the kitchen, the regulars swapped stories over eggs and coffee, and Mark was behind the bar, sleeves rolled up and grin wide as ever. Riley slipped behind the counter, hip-bumping Mark out of the way with practiced ease. He laughed, catching her waist. "Look who's finally got the boss attitude." Riley grinned. "Took me long enough, huh? But I think I'm ready for it." He leaned in, brushing a kiss behind her ear. "You were always ready. You just had to figure it out." They moved together through the morning rush, pouring coffee, cracking jokes, ducking flying napkins as Gina defended her title as Clover's sassiest. Riley noticed the way the regulars looked at her now, not with confusion or pity, but with genuine warmth. She'd proven herself, earnest, imperfect, unafraid to laugh at her own mistakes. By noon, the place was packed. Mark slid a fresh drink her way, fingertips lingering on her wrist. "You good, Riley?" She nodded, heart thumping in the best way. "I'm perfect." He smiled, eyes full of secrets. "So what now, boss?" Riley looked around at her kingdom. The clatter and chaos, the mismatched glasses and sticky floors, the laughter and the love simmering in every corner. It was messy, loud, a little magical, just like her. "I think it's time we made this place our own," she said, voice ringing with new confidence. "New cocktails, new music, maybe a little more dancing on the tables." Gina overheard and whooped. "About time, the Clover needs a queen." The regulars picked up the chant, Queen Riley, and Mark joined in, his voice low and teasing. Riley rolled her eyes, but her cheeks glowed. "I'll take queen over king any day." As the afternoon faded into golden evening, Serena appeared at the door. She watched from the shadows, a faint smile curving her lips. Riley caught her eye and raised a glass. Serena nodded, a silent benediction, and melted into the crowd. The magic wasn't gone, not really. It shimmered in every laugh, every touch, every stolen glance between Riley and Mark. It lingered in the warm hum of the bar, the sense that anything was possible if you were brave enough to want it. That night, Mark locked up the bar, turning the key with a flourish. He pulled Riley close, hands settling on her waist. "So, Queen Riley," he murmured, "what's your first royal decree?" She grinned, looping her arms around his neck. "No more secrets, no more running, we do this together from now on." Mark kissed her, slow and deep, until the world outside faded away. When they broke apart, breathless and laughing, Riley felt more alive than she ever had as Rye, more herself than ever before. And as the lights dimmed and the lucky Clover pulsed with music and joy, Riley knew that magic was real. Not just the kind Serena conjured, but the kind that came from loving and being loved, from daring to change, from claiming your place in the world. The bar was hers now, and so was her heart. Epilogue. A month later, the lucky Clover was packed for the biggest night of the year. Riley and Mark worked side by side, her in a green dress, him in his trademark flannel, raising glasses, telling stories, and stealing kisses when no one was looking. Serena sat at her usual table, reading fortunes for tips and winking at Riley whenever she passed. Outside, a new face stood in the doorway, lost and lonely, peering in at the laughter and light. Serena's eyes sparkled as she beckoned them closer. After all, there's always another soul in need of a little magic, and at the Clover, anything can happen.